My Fair Lady is a 1964 movie directed by George Cukor, based on the original stage play Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. The original tale that inspired Shaw is a poem written by Ovid and tells of a love story between a sculptor, Pygmalion, and a statue of his own making. The movie, featuring Rex Harrison and Audrey Hepburn, is the story of Professor Higgins, a scholar of phonetics, and Eliza, an illiterate Cockney flower seller.
Look where you're going, dear, look where you're going!
Professor Higgins bet with his friend Colonel Pickering, another expert in phonetics, that he could pass Eliza off as a duchess at an embassy ball, only by teaching her how to speak and behave as a noble.
You see this creature with her curbstone English, the English that'll keep her in the gutter till the end of her days? Well, sir, in 6 months I could pass her off as a duchess at an embassy ball. I could even get her a job as a lady's maid or a shop assistant, which requires better English.
Ew, what's that you say?
After a long series of grueling and frustrating exercises, the experiment is a huge success. Eliza, however, has to find her place in the world, because her new manners and accent are not suited for her old social position. The ending of the movie adaptation is different from the original play. In fact, after seeing Eliza moving out of his home, the professor realizes her importance in his life and goes after her, in the attempt to bring her back with him. This makes Eliza a Cinderella-like character. In the book, on the contrary, despite her attachment to Higgins, she marries Freddie Hansford-Hill, a penniless noble. Shaw wrote an essay, published in the following edition of his book, to demonstrate to his public how impossible a marriage between Eliza and Higgins was, in reply to some happy ending speculations. George Bernard Shaw was born in Dublin in 1856. He came from an Irish humble family. His father was a public worker and an alcoholic, and his mother was a singer that passed on him her passion for music. When he was 20 years old, he moved to London, where he worked for some years, living poorly. He could not find a publisher for his earliest novels, which never had any success at all, even after he became a famous writer. In 1882, he joined the Socialist Party, and 2 years later he became a member of the Fabian Society, a British organization that stood up for socialist ideals of justice and equality. He wrote its manifesto and helped to spread its ideas with pamphlets and articles. During these years, he worked as a journalist and also as a drama and music critic. Shaw became very popular and proved himself to be a very talented writer, an unconventional person with a keen eye for people and life in general, only when he started writing his first plays. In 1898, 7 of these were published in a collection named Plays Pleasant and Unpleasant, and he earned some success. In 1901, another collection was released, and more plays were published before the beginning of World War I. Among the others, Pygmalion remains one of his best works still today. After the end of World War I, thanks to his great success and his reputation in literary circles, in 1926 he won the Nobel Prize in Literature. His satire reaches every idea and social convention and clearly shows his deep belief that people can change and improve thanks to education. One of the main topics of the Pygmalion is indeed how education can lead to personal improvement, not only at a phonetic level. The play, in fact, shows that being able to speak and behave perfectly could be useless without the aid of an adequate education. On the contrary, it could even become harmful. Once Eliza has learned to speak as a noble, obviously she cannot go back to sell flowers, because her manners will be completely out of place in the streets of London. So, according to Shaw, education is fundamental for the improvement of a human being. In this play, the author makes a mockery of the rigid British class system of the time. In the Edwardian period, it was unthinkable for a person that came from the working class to join the upper class and vice versa. No noble, regardless of their wealth, would ever be required to work for a living, and even if they had to, they wouldn't settle for a low-level job. Hidden behind the seemingly frivolous and romantic nature of the story, the writer put forth a deep analysis of the social system in Britain. Accents are used to identify the social origin of each character. Because of this idea to express the difference of class through the accents, the Italian adaptation of the movie was quite the challenge, and still today My Fair Lady is considered one of the most difficult movies to adapt in other languages. This challenge has always fascinated me, and I often thought about the multiple solutions to the riddle. The Italian translation of Cockney dialogues at the beginning of the movie, dialogues that are also in the original play by Bernard Shaw, involved a huge translation problem, which was solved in different ways in the literary translation and in the movie adaptation. In the book, the translator decided to use a mix of words from dialects of North Italy areas, such as Veneto, Piedmont, Liguria, and above all, Milan. This kind of stylistic choice, based on the idea that these dialects have a Latin Celtic matrix that recalls the Cockney accent, does not satisfy completely the Italian audience. This mix of dialects, in fact, does not do justice to Eliza's personality. In the earlier scenes, she uses coarse language, and her pronunciation is awful.
Your name, please. Your name, miss?
My name is of no concern to you whatsoever.
One moment, please.
In the movie, instead, the different choice to use words and intonation from South Italy dialects gives the character a different, more familiar impact. However, none of these choices is by definition the right one, and none of them is a complete solution to the riddle. Despite of this, using a mix of South Italian sonorities works better because many of Eliza's lines are about the wrong pronunciation of vowels, just like the Cockney accent in the original version.
Tu non capisci altro che pettesa. Tu tieni lo cuore coperto da peli, professor. Ah, ma io mi sono proprio stufata e me la coglie. E tu ti dovresti vergognare come si fette.
Vuoi dei cioccolatini, Elisa?
Obviously, in addition to the phonetic issue, many of the puns, pronunciation exercises and tongue twisters that Higgins uses in his lessons have to be adapted, trying to remain as close as possible to the original version, but, of course, in Italian.
Io desidero che tu legga questi versi facendo in modo di scandire bene tutte le sillabe come se non avessi le palline in bocca. Coperti di muschio, i vecchi abeti paion giganti con una verde corazza. Ogni parola chiara e limpida.
The same principle applies to songs. In fact, My Fair Lady is a musical movie, and there is a lot of songs to be translated, starting with one that is based on a tongue twister.
La rana in Spagna gracida in campagna.
Accidenti, ce l'ha fatta! Questa volta c'è riuscita!
La rana in Spagna gracida in campagna.
È portentosa!
Despite many difficulties, the dialogue writers succeeded. Eliza's way of speaking is translated as effectively as possible, and the same goes for the perfect British accent of Professor Higgins and other characters that belong to the upper class, emphasizing the cultural difference. Obviously, puns and tongue twisters lose something in the translations process. The translators could not maintain the literal meaning of the original version and had to make some changes in the translated version, trying to reproduce the linguistic and phonetic problems in Italian, to make them more comprehensible to the local audience. The tongue twisters change and become those that we learn in childhood that are in our culture, making us closer to Eliza and trying to preserve all of Shaw's humor.
La maestà e la grandezza della madrelingua è la più grande ricchezza che possediamo. I più ispirati pensieri che abbiano mai attraversato la mente degli uomini sono espressi nei suoi straordinari, immaginifici e musicali miscugli di suoni. Ed è questo il premio che ti accingi a conquistare, Elisa.